Hi, this is Kim Droptiny bringing you chapter 35 of Beyond the Echo Cavern by BreAnna Teschendorf. And it's just this chapter and next, and we will be done with the book. This chapter is, again, the sweetest times. The next 3 weeks that Charlie, Gabe, and Annika spent in the palace were the best of their lives. There were plenty of other children there to make friends with, games to play, and new things to observe. They wondered what had become of the children they had rescued out of the darkness, and were told that the children were here and there in Perdamayan, learning what it means to be royalty and being prepared for their own adoptions. They were satisfied with this answer, though they would have liked to see them again, especially Daldis, who had rescued them. Furthermore, they were told the way out of the cave had been left open to give the children who stayed behind a chance to come out, but none of them did. In fact, in a few days' time, they had blocked up the exit themselves, making it impassable again. They spent many enjoyable days of leisure at the palace, but they also put in many hours at work on the record of their journey. Charlie was mostly in charge of mapping out the pathways they had been down. Annika was mostly in charge of writing down what exactly had happened. Gabe helped them both in these tasks, and they got into several discussions about the events that had transpired, each of them remembering it slightly differently. In the end, they were successful in their task, and all felt satisfied with the accuracy of their report. One evening, shortly after their job was completed, the three were sitting on top of a tower on the south side of the palace. The tower was covered by a dome of the clearest glass, which touched down at only 4 corners, and most of the tower top was exposed to the fresh air. The children faced the setting sun. Annika was wearing a gorgeous peach-colored gown that she had picked out. The sky was blazing purple, and the exploding night lights were just beginning to appear overhead. They had brought candles and a picnic of fruits with them. Gabe was playing a Perdamayan instrument that he had been fiddling on since he arrived at the palace. All of them felt as perfect as it is possible to feel. "May I join you?" A deep, sweet voice came from the door behind them, and they froze, recognizing the voice immediately, but still rather afraid to turn and look at the face the voice belonged to. Gabe was the first to overcome his shyness, and he turned to face the speaker. Gabe's own sweet face grew bright, reflecting the radiance of that beautiful man, and he melted into a smile, jumped up, and ran into his arms. "Hoan!" he exclaimed. "Now I recognize you." Hoan held Gabe tightly, and at the same time looked over into Annika's eyes, for she too had now turned to face the familiar voice. "Yes," she said, "I always knew, but it was like a fog." She laughed and ran into his arms, where there was plenty of room for both of them. "Charlie, don't be afraid." The voice was tender. Charlie turned to him, with tears flowing down his freckled cheeks, and gasped, "Hoan! Yes, I do know you, sir. I will never doubt you again." "Even if you do, Charlie, I will always love you," smiled Hoan, and Charlie could resist no longer and joined the other two in those welcoming arms. He was engulfed with warmth and a sweetness that was almost too much for him to contain. For Charlie knew exactly who he was. He had been alone and rather lost, and Hoan had found him and called him royalty, and now he was adopted. It overwhelmed Charlie to know that none of his past failures could cause Hoan to cast him off. He found that he stood there, a new man, completely captured by the power of Hoan's affection for him. Charlie knew that from that day on, no matter where he was, he could find peace all around him if he could recall this wonderful love. May I join you? Hoan repeated his first question to the children with a smile in his eyes. The children pulled back and said all at once, "Yes, of course," and how happy they were. He came, sat down, and ate with them in the last rays of the setting sun. Although they could see Hoan's face, there was something about him that was blurry. He was smudged with light. They could almost see through him. They couldn't see out the other side of him, but his chest and heart glowed visibly inside of him with so many colors. It was like the swirl that had surrounded Charlie in his vision. It seemed that all of the hues and tones of Pertamayan, the lovely palace, and the jewels were reflected in his heart. Or was it the opposite? Was it his heart that was reflected in all the colors of Pertamayan? They stayed high up in the tower, talking about many things, until the sun came up the next morning, and then until it went down again the next night. It seemed to the children almost as if the sun were racing through the sky, and time was meaningless as long as they were with him. He was in no hurry to leave them, and was happy to answer all of their questions, even if they didn't always understand his answers. "What will happen with the children who are still down in that pit?" Charlie asked him, hot with concern. "I suppose they will continue on with their lives," Hoan said. "Gondel has lost a great battle, but she will not stay quiet for long. Trust me, there is nothing to worry about. I will continue to try to help those children. Every one of them is important to me." There was compassion in his voice and some pain in his eyes that was deeper than Charlie's worry. The children understood that they really needn't worry. Hoan's concern was much greater than theirs, and he was unquestionably capable. "Hoan," Annika began a new question. "When we were down there, Charlie and Gabe started singing. When they did, a rumble rose up from deep beneath us, and it was that rumble that destroyed her kingdom. What made the rumble?" Hoan threw back his head in a deep, long laugh, and when he looked at them again, his eyes were flashing sharp like two swords. "I made the rumble," he explained. "That was my war cry, my roar of anger that you should be threatened. And it was my feet stomping to the rhythm of your song, my delight that you would sing love to me to overcome. You see, I am Hoan, the very foundation of Pertamayan. I told you I would never leave you." The children looked at him in amazement. Fierceness was a side to him they had never seen before, and I can assure you they liked it very much. "Why did you send us in there?" It was Gabe who asked this question in a timid voice. "Because I knew you would go," Hoan smiled at each one in turn. "I have asked others to go. I have told them many times about the other children. They won't go, and I won't force them to go. I am not that kind of papa. But do not think that this makes you better than my other children," he added. "If you had spent your whole lives in Pertamayan, you would not be as good as some of them are, just like some of them are not as brave as you are. Each of you knows me in a different way and is learning to know me in new ways." During the rest of their time with him, he listened intently, as no grown-up ever had listened before, to all of their thoughts, worries, hopes, and anything else they wanted to share. Gabe, Annika, and Charlie each had the feeling that they were the most cared for. The longer they spoke with him, the clearer his face became. By the end of their conversation, they could see him nearly as clearly as they could see each other. The more clearly they saw him, the more they loved him. Finally, he rose and said, "Children, it is time to go home. I think you know this." "Yes," Gabe said. Annika and Charlie also murmured their consent. They had known it from the moment that they saw him, but none of them wanted to mention it, for they never wanted this sweetness to end. "How will we get back?" Charlie asked him. "The same way you came. We will walk together, back to the resplendent Echo Cavern. We will open the door. There are no snakes there now, as you know. Home is waiting for you." He took Annika's hand and led them out of the tower. He didn't hurry them. As they came down, the sun was just beginning to rise on another day, and the children couldn't exactly be sure how long they had been with Hoan. They said goodbye to their friends in the palace, and then, with lingering looks over their shoulders, they left through the same gate that they had come in. And that's the end of chapter 35. And so, as I said, we have one more chapter. Thank you for listening. If you like it, please share this book. And I'm also on podcasts now. So find me on podcast, Kim's Reads and Talks. Thank you for listening. God bless you.